Again, thanks for being here, everybody. And without any further ado, Todd Fernandez. Thanks again for being here, Todd.
Thank you all very much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see? Great. So hi, everyone. Again, my name is Todd Fernandez. I'm with Climate Crisis Policy and the Earth Bill Network. I was formerly General Counsel and Legislative Director for Economic Affairs in Massachusetts and an ombudsman for brownfields revitalization. Then I also helped to get the Equality Act introduced into Congress, which is our federal civil rights law for the LGBT community, which also includes women. So I've been through this process of identifying legislative strategies that can help build a movement, that can help change the political status quo and achieve things we didn't think were necessarily possible before. And now I've found my way into the climate movement and have found myself in a similar role. So today I'm here to talk to you about the Earth Bill, which we call a 2030 moonshot for Earth. Let's see here if I can make it slide. There it goes. The official title is the Earth Act to Stop Climate Pollution by 2030, HR 598. This is a flagship bill with real solutions. It contains mandates on industry to stop climate pollution. It addresses 3 industries: electricity, cars, and food. And it has a deadline, as science requires, of 2030. Most importantly, it's a demand to inspire and unify the movement and the public to work together to make Congress take action and to break through the political status quo, which has us all stymied. United, we are powerful enough to make Congress act. And this is the how we get off of fossil fuels. Everyone's saying the mantra, we need to get transition off fossil fuels, but no one's really talking about how. This bill is how. As I mentioned, the policy solution is to place mandates on industry to make 100% transition by 2030 in 3 areas. So it requires all utilities to purchase 100% renewable electricity. It requires car manufacturers to manufacture and sell only zero emission vehicles. And then it requires big ag and farms to implement regenerative agriculture and to take that basically to scale on the farmland in the United States. So these are 3 consensus solutions, obviously: renewable electricity, zero emission vehicles, regenerative agriculture. You hear these in every international report and every policy recommendation from every direction. They also have consumer connection because it's our monthly bills that we spend a lot of money each month paying for electricity, cars, and food. So these are 3 kitchen table issues, which was a nice coincidence as we ended up with it, because it's hard enough to get people to understand or relate to this topic, now alone feel a sense of ownership or responsibility, or to understand what they might be able to do. So this really makes it bite-sized for the public at large: electricity, cars, and food. It's our money each month. It's our pollution. And therefore, it's our right and our duty to make Congress act. The bill has a great list of co-sponsors. Here you can see from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states, and we have 2 new ones, and 1 new one in Texas and 1 new one from Michigan, for a total of 13. It's an extremely diverse group, as you can see from the photos. The bill now has endorsements from over 150 organizations. This is just a few of the logos that you can see on the website. The full list of organizations and all the individual endorsements. I should have put this before the co-sponsors, because it was really all these groups coming together one by one as we secured these endorsements that gave the bill the community support required to actually get it introduced. I didn't mention that Representative Espaillat, pictured first, is the lead sponsor from New York 13, which is my congressional district, in the upper section of Manhattan and the lower section of the Bronx. So all of these groups have come together, and it's really been led by the faith community in many respects, And we're happy to report that now we have endorsements from Laudato Si movement, Green Faith, Faith in Place from Illinois, um, the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth. It's just a great and strong assortment, including Metro New York Climate Catholic Movement, which really led the effort in New York with us. How does the bill work? It's a short 15 pages, which in and of itself feels like a miracle. It was intended to be concise and to the point and understandable, so that we could teach it to the public and use the tool in that way. But so the bill works in a very straightforward way. It puts mandates in law to stop the pollution at the factory. So, and specifically, it requires plans within 1 year of passage from the three industries that I just mentioned: utility companies, car manufacturers, and big ag. And they have to come up with a plan to make that transition within the period of time. And once that plan is provided within a year of passage, they get submitted to government and to various agencies that have jurisdiction. And then we all will see them, and it will be essentially a game plan for how we're going to build and implement these goals. That then becomes an all of society push to make it happen. Very importantly, the mandates provide certainty of demand to unleash private investment to build at scale and on time. Everyone is clamoring for private investment. If you look at the next COP, that you'll see that as the theme. How do we leverage private investment? Well, the answer is to put mandates in law that create a guaranteed market demand for all that renewable energy. And that then results in requests for procurement from utility companies, and private companies will rush to the forefront to help meet that demand because they know there's going to be a guaranteed revenue stream that makes the projects financeable. So that's a very important goal that's being put forward, but they're not really talking about how they're going to get private investment at scale. And so the mandates do that. Just as an example there, in England put a deadline of 2030 for no more combustion engines, internal combustion engines. And then they floated the idea recently of extending that deadline, and Ford Motors raised a big stink saying, wait a minute, you put this deadline in place. We've been investing massively to meet that deadline. Don't change the deadline. So it's just a great example of how mandates provide that market incentive. And then the bill also provides for sharing of the transition expenses. There are 50% grants available to these industries, and then double tax deductions for the transition costs. And then there are tax penalties for non-compliance. Fortunately, these solutions are already happening. And we have renewable energy standards in 38 states. There are over 500 utilities with renewable plans or zero emission goals. Most major car companies are pledging to go all EV at certain different deadlines. And I just told you the Ford Motors example. And 9 states in the United States have banned internal combustion engines, usually by about 2035. And I learned recently that major food corporations are also going regenerative. I forget the names, Danone and Mars. Danone took its entire supply chain, including livestock, regenerative. So it shows that it's feasible and it's already starting to happen. So the good news is that we have the science, we have the technology, the economics. They're all in our favor. These are all the winds in our sail that you could possibly hope for making such a dramatic shift and on such a timeline. But none of it is happening fast enough or at scale enough. So as you all know, time has run out. The carbon clock as of November last year, I should update this, I guess. Sad every time I have to update this because the time is just ticking by. So back then it said we have 5 years, 3 months to 1.5 degrees, meaning the amount of pollution that we pump in over that period of time will lock in 1.5 degrees. Many experts are saying that's a done deal. And then you see the numbers for 2.0. Sadly, about 77% of IPCC scientists that responded to the survey expect us to hit 2.5 degrees Celsius warming with about 50% of IPCC scientists saying we will hit 3 degrees Celsius global warming, global heating. Those are obviously doomsday scenarios and numbers, and that report came out just this month. Carbon Action Tracker, in terms of setting proactive goals, said we need 80% renewables by 2030 to meet the 1.5 degree goal. And then the United Nations 2023 global stocktake, and just reiterates all of this and more, and it urges urgent reductions this decade by 2030. As we all know, the destruction has begun. I pop in and out of the news on this, and it's increasingly shocking. Just the other day, I went to see what was going on in Brazil, devastating floods, hundreds of thousands of people displaced. Mexico, hailstorms in May that resulted in feet of compacted snow and snow-related flooding. East Africa floods, almost 500 dead, over 400,000 displaced just in the last few weeks. The middle of the United States, tornadoes that have killed many and destroyed communities. The destruction has already begun, and it's going to get exponential. The trajectory is terrifying, and we must have federal policy in the United States to have any hope of changing this trajectory. And Congress is the only body with the power and authority to make the laws that we need to make the changes at scale and on time. We're glad to have analysis of the Earth Bill's projected greenhouse gas emissions reductions. This analysis was conducted by a group called Regenerative Intelligence, but their team were the people who created Project Drawdown. And so these are the experts of the world that have volunteered their time to do this analysis of the Earth Bill. And what they concluded is that the Earth Bill would result in an additional 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, an additional 50% by 2050. They're about 21% in play right now. This is all from 2005 levels. We're about on a 21 to 25% reduction from past factors. And this would add another 40. So that would mean about 60% reductions in emissions by 2030 from 2005 levels. This would meet the US Paris Accord goals, and it would domesticate the US Paris Accord Treaty or those commitments. Just a note on how this is different from the Inflation Reduction Act, which has projected emissions reductions as well. They range, but the middle of that range is around 9%. But it's important to keep in mind that those are all voluntary incentives, and there's nothing mandatory about them. And there are a lot of barriers to a lot of the things that are hoped to happen in that effort, but it's still extremely important. Seed money across the board, the value of it and importance of it in terms of giving us some momentum and really working on the infrastructure transition that we need cannot be overstated. So it's a very powerful and good bill, but it's nowhere near adequate or certain enough in the emissions reductions. And at this time, it's very much too late to play a wait and see game to see what actually happens from that bill. The movement strategy, this is a very important part of the conversation. So obviously the hardest part is passing a bill like this, to say the least. Sorry for the nervous laughter. For 40 years, Congress has not banned greenhouse gas pollution. They've really never even considered or undertaken a piece of legislation to require industries transition off of fossil fuels. Every time I say that out loud, I feel like it's impossible that that could be true, but it is. We've done some fiscal policy things, but we've never done any pollution policy. And frankly, the civil society, the environmental movement has not really demanded it either or proposed legislation to do this. And there was one effort that was a smaller effort called the All Fossil Fuels Act, That was not refiled. And that's partly, those provisions have now been incorporated into the Earth Bill. So the strategy is one of movement unity, to create one demand that we can all pull for together. There are a wide array of big greens that need to be united, and I'll mention where that stands in a minute. Civil society, much more broadly, has to enter this arena. They've really never had anything that they could point to fight for or to stand up for, but with this bill, they'll have that. So academia and legal associations and sports associations, every association you could think of is going to be necessary to build the kind of political power we need. And then public mobilization as well. And we're hoping that once we have big greens, we will then be able to have access to celebrity support that will help us make it a public call to action. Already we're in, great place with public support. Over 70% of the public is in favor of the kinds of transitions in the bill. And this is an old poll. And we need updated polling on that, but it's going to be higher. Interesting, the bill doesn't require consumer action, and it will not implicate any kind of, or institute any kind of price increases, particularly not in the immediate term, like, for example, a fossil fuel tax might, which would be an immediate price increase. So it doesn't trigger any of those voter problems that some other ideas present. And so the idea is that we're going to have the consumers and the voters all on one side of this ledger, and we're just going to have the industries on the other, for a very clean division there, so we can hopefully unite. And it's a very clean and simple bill to understand. And this is the message that bears repeating: we must unite as one, and if so, we have the numbers. But this unity is no easy feat, as you may all know, being organizers yourself. But hopefully the cause of the earth and concern for the future will be the galvanizing moment that has eluded us in the past. So this bill is also a political strategy, and it's a litmus test for politicians. As we all know, everyone says politics is the obstacle. And yet no one really talks about, well, what's a strategy to break through that obstacle? How do we change the political status quo in Congress? And so part of it is what I just told you about our unity, all within our ability to manifest if we choose. It's not, the opposition has no power over our unity and unification. That's all within our power. But in addition to unity, we have to get into the political arena in a new way. So we have to elect pro-planet Congress people. And in order to do that, you have to know their position on policy that really calls the question. And because otherwise they can talk a good game, they can have nice records based on past votes. But until we put the issue of mandates on these industries, we're not really calling the political question that costs them anything. So this bill gives a very clear choice. Are you for the pollution, or are you for the planet? Pollution is now the Achilles heel of big oil and big ag. So there's a unique opportunity that historically not been there to really take back the power to govern in the general welfare, to legislate in the public interest. And so this bill really calls that question: are you for the oligarchy setting the rules, which is the situation we're in now? Or are you for legislating in the general welfare, as the Constitution of the United States empowers Congress to do? And no other bill calls this question. And so it's very important. This gets into the issue of retaking democracy and the struggle that we were in around our democracy, which can be traced back to this standoff where major corporations really control the policy making, and we, the people, are not getting any of our policy agenda, from guns to right to choice, to schools, to healthcare. You name a topic, corporations control it, the policy. But this bill gives us the opportunity to unite around a common cause to push through that resistance and that power, unlike any of those other issues which have, relatively fewer people behind them or organizations behind them. The earth is a common concern of everyone. So I like to think of the earth bill like a slingshot, like David and Goliath's slingshot. It's a precision instrument that focused specifically on the pollution policy, and it has the power of the masses behind it. And if we get together and aim collectively, we will be able to pierce the control that these corporations have over government. And this, I believe, is how we change the political status quo. Next action steps. There are 3 fronts that we're always working on. We're looking for congressional co-sponsors, and we'll talk about that in the Q&A, but the idea is to form your own congressional team in your congressional district. The Illinois Earth Bill team has been hard at work on this for quite a while now and has successfully gotten 4 Illinois co-sponsors, which is, I think, the record for a state. But we'd love to continue that organizing. It's obviously hard work, and when you get ignored or you get no, it takes a lot of in-district effort. Group outreach, we're always looking for organizational endorsements, so any organization you could think of, and those add up and they go to our list and they make our claim for this bill more powerful with every endorsement, so you can't underestimate those. And then public awareness. Engage the public and promote the bill, and that's part of what this event is for. So that's earthbill.org is the website. I put it in the chat. The timeline for action is 2023. This past year, our goal was to unify the big greens, with whom all could be possible and without whom almost nothing will be. So this is a very important strategic goal. I'm very happy to report that this has progressed tremendously. I want to pinch myself sometimes when I think about it, and I'm reluctant to accept that we're there yet, but we're very close. A list of organizations, which is too long for me to mention, but is really quite comprehensive, is now engaged in discussing language for the Senate bill. And Representative Espaillat's is now, thankfully, convening those meetings for us. And everyone's showing up and giving comments, and we're really in an expedited phase of the process now that's been going on for some time. And by July, optimistically, we will have a pretty solid draft that an incredible array of big greens will hopefully be on board with. That will be a game changer for the movement historically, really, to have that kind of unity. The good news is that they're all agreed that we need a flagship bill, that the mandates need to be in there. There's some discussion as to the timeline. We're tightening regenerative agriculture. We're adding additional provisions. So there's very interesting things happening there. But most important thing is that it's happening. Then this year, our goal is to get on the agenda, and the political agenda, and of course, the planning that is now already underway in different corners for what it will look like, what the lay of the land will be after the election, what kind of agenda items would be there. So for this, it's again about reaching out to your congresspeople, getting more groups to believe in this and to want this, to expect this. We've made a little bit of an election cycle push, but we still have plenty of time in the election cycle to continue to do this, grow public awareness. We're having meetings in New York with the leadership, the Democratic leadership. We've met with Senator Schumer's office. We have outreach underway with Representative Jeffries. And so everything that we're doing is really to plant this seed that pollution policy should be next, no matter what the outcome of the election. But we're not going to accept more fiscal goals. We need pollution policy. And I'm very happy in the meeting with Senator Schumer, their staff reported back, yes, pollution policy should be next on the agenda. So that already felt like a great step. And then 2025, it's time to push for passage. In my opinion, it's time to push for passage no matter who is in charge of Congress or the White House. In summary, the Earth Bill provides consensus solutions. It contains industry mandates. It has real quantifiable emission reductions. It's designed to unify the movement and the public. It serves as a political litmus test. And we hope and believe that together we can make Congress act. And we need to do that to save the future. As we all know, time's up. It's the Earth Bill logo, one of them. And I thank you very much.